What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the elaboration station. If all passengers can take their seats, we're ready for liftoff. Cue the music.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the elaboration station. I'm your host, Tanner Westbrook, and this is going to be a good one. I'm going to talk about why I wanted to start a podcast, get into talking about this. I haven't really addressed it too much on the podcast here, so we're gonna get after it. My little story here. So the reason why I wanted to get into podcasting was I've never really shared this too much with anybody. I mean, the people that are close to me know it, but I had a DVT blood clot in my iliac vein in my leg, which is one of the main arteries going down your leg, and I've struggled with everything since then. I mean, I went through a lot of doctor's appointments and really, scary times. And I think it's important to share this because it gives people perspective on what, everybody has their shit that they deal with. And it's very common to have struggles in life. And you got to be able to get through all the bullshit to live the best life that you can. So, I had a blood clot. It's been a while now, 4 years, 5 years. I don't exactly remember the year, but I injured my ribs, and I was pretty much sitting in a chair for most of the day. Anybody that's injured your ribs knows it's not the most comfortable thing in the world to deal with. It's very you can't get comfortable. It's hard to move around. You can't breathe too much. I had a little device that they gave me to breathe into, that they give people that are in the hospital so they don't get pneumonia, and you have to breathe in and out, and it moves a ball, and it was just real painful. So it was bad. I injured my ribs pretty bad, and I was sitting down a lot, and the doctors never told me what caused the blood clot, but I have speculated quite a bit on what it could have been, and this is pretty close of what I think happened. So I was sitting down a lot, and I just wasn't getting a lot of movement, and you need that's, the doctors would tell me that's real common in airplane rides, long airplane flights, because you have the seat putting pressure on the back of your leg. You don't have the best circulation, so a lot of people can develop clotting over a long flight in their calf area. And so I was sitting down a lot, and I got it in my waist, where your waist creases. So how I got to know that I had the clot, it was a weird I had a weird pain in my abdomen area, and I thought it could have been maybe my appendix, because it was in that little area. And so I went to a chiropractor initially. I initially thought maybe my back was out, and I had some type of pain in my hip from my back being out. And then over the day, it developed into a worse pain. And then the day after that, we went to the doctor, and they looked at me for about 5 minutes. My doctor is an OG. He's 80 plus years old, and he's practiced medicine for as long as he started when he was in his 20s, so 60 years. And he's just a baller. So he looked at my leg for all of 5 minutes and sent me across his little area. They had another section of his doctor's office, and they did an ultrasound on that area that I was having the pain, and within a minute she says, yeah, you have a blood clot in your leg. And so right after that, they sent me to the hospital, where I had to have a CT scan ran on me. And they, you know, if you've ever had a CT scan, they inject dye into you, and they put you in a machine and like pretty much photograph all your arteries and watch the blood flow and see if there's any blockages, which there was in my leg, in that iliac vein that runs down the inner groin area. And but that wasn't the only one. So I guess I had he didn't say how many I had in my lung, but I had something. Oh, I might remember some stuff, and I have to backtrack a little bit. But before I had the pain in my stomach, a couple nights prior, I woke up with a really bad chest pain, like a really sharp pain, like someone was stabbing me in the knife with a knife in the like lung area on the left side. And my mother had a blood clot, and that's what she in her lung, and that's what I remember her telling, like, that's what it felt like. So I woke her up. I was like real freaked out because I knew that what I felt wasn't good. And it went away. So everything was fine for a couple days, and then this occurred after that. So I had pulmonary embolism in my lung, which is a blood clot in the lung. I'm not sure exactly how many areas it was clotted, but usually if you have a blood clot, it will gather in your lung because that's such a large space on your body. So over time, I guess the artery where I had the clot in my leg like hardened, so it created like a scar tissue around the clot to probably protect it from bursting. And so I had severe pain. That's what I was feeling in my abdomen, and it hurt to walk. It was horrible. So they find the clot in the CT scan. Then they get me immediately on like some blood thinners and pain medication because I had to walk around. So they gave me pain meds, whatever it was, the normal shit. It wasn't anything crazy, but it was painful. Like I could barely lift and move my leg, and it was real swollen. So I went through this whole process, but they're like, you need the best chances to move as much as possible. So when I felt up to it, I would, go and I'd put my fins on and I would swim laps in the pool, just kicking my legs, even though it was real painful. And I'd walk around. I'd try to get up every, 10 to 15 minutes and walk around, try to move all that blood. And it was just this whole scary process. And I didn't work for a pretty good chunk of time, a couple months, because I was, on these blood thinners. And if I stood up too fast, I would get lightheaded. If I bent over anything, I would get lightheaded super easy because my blood was so thin from the blood thinners that it was just very, it was hard to be comfortable, and it was scary. And I remember breaking down multiple times, like crying. My mom was hugging me, and I just like, how did this happen? I was extremely fit. I was probably amongst the most fit I've been in my entire life. And this happens, and it breaks you down. And I remember just breaking down multiple times. And it was scary. I'm young. It's not like you hear that stuff quite frequently in younger people. And it was very, it made me very aware of my body, and it was scary. So once I was on the medication, everything, so it pretty much, it never went away. I went to a bunch of doctors. I went to Stanford to see doctors there to look at it, and they said because I was so young that my leg recovered very well. And it was, I still don't have that artery. That artery doesn't work, but I do have like a huge natural webbing of like veins that expanded. And they're varicose veins, I believe is the name. And they just kind of puff up, and they kind of got bigger than normal. And I have a web, like a netting of that going down my right leg. And they were shocked when I went to Stanford, and this is after a year of this happening. So I went back to work, everything cleared up, everything got better. And, I could work, I could be normal. My ankle still gets a little swollen, but nothing too crazy. And so over time, the doctor just was kind of like dumbfounded, like, what the hell happened? How this just, it didn't go away, but my body just kind of was like, okay, we're going to make this leg work without that vein, pretty much. And so everything went to normal. Not totally normal. I still take blood thinners. I mean, to this day, it's years later, and I still take stuff. And it's so the leg was very, for a little while. It took a while for it to feel normal, but it came back, and it's fully functioning now. But it was scary because I went to Stanford, and I had another CT scan ran. They run it. They're looking at everything, and it was a weird process because the way Stanford's laid out, you have like where they do the CT scan at in one building, like way like a half mile away. Then you have to take a shuttle to the other, like where the doctors were at. So we go to the CT scan first, and then we go over to where my doctor was at. I'm not exactly sure where or what the thing was, but it was like the cancer center. Like they thought I might have had something initially, and I walked in there, and I wasn't aware of what was going on until I walked in there. So I walked in there, and it was like you saw a lot of really sick people, and it was super scary because I'm like, holy fuck. I'm like, this is real. Like I'm in Stanford Medical, and I'm in the cancer center. Like, what the fuck's going on? So excuse me. So I go in there, and there's people with respirators on with no hair, and it's frightening. I'm super anxious. I got really nervous and sweaty and clammy and white, and it was scary. And so I walked into the office, and I'm sitting there waiting, and couple minutes later, 3 Stanford doctors walk in. They got 3 people with white lab coats that say Stanford on them. They have their badges and everything, and there's 3 of them. And they start asking me some questions about what I do, throughout the day. I'm like, I work on my feet at the golf course all day. I pull hoses around that weigh at least 50 pounds. I'm on my feet all day walking around, and I go to the gym, I work out, and they all start looking at each other. And the one guy in the middle looks at me and says, most people that have had what you had can't even walk through that door without assistance, as he points to the door. So right there, I'm like, what the fuck? And they couldn't give me any answers on, all they really said is your leg's working fine, apparently, and you don't have any issues with it, and it's going to be all right. So they were talking about maybe putting a stent in there and, doing stuff like that and but it works. My leg works. I could do lunges. I can run. I can, swim. I can do everything active without any impingement or any pain. And it's just one of those weird things that happen, and I'll never know what actually happened, which is scary. And you never know what causes shit. That's the worst part, because I never knew what caused this whole process. And it leaves you wondering. And along the lines, I learned more information. They talked about, if you're too dehydrated, you can clot. And I never used to drink a lot of water until this happened. And knowing how much water I consume now regularly compared to before, it's a substantial amount different. And I continue to, try to work on my health to make it easier. They tell me that, or they've been telling me that losing weight will put less pressure on those veins and arteries.